Hello everyone, welcome to Sniper Sundays. I hope you're all well and having a great weekend. So Sniper Sundays, we're going to get into it in a minute, look through what happened last week and what we're looking at ahead for the week, what we're looking for the week ahead. So going to be looking at potential areas. We're going to be looking at taking trades. Remember this week we're going to be implementing buy and sell orders as well. So that's a new feature that we're going to be looking at taking this week. And yeah, just want to touch on, I hope that you've been able to watch the educational webinar on trading sessions. So if you guys have sent me some messages who have been able to watch it so far over the weekend, and the feedback is really good. A lot of you guys just seeing how trading sessions work, understanding it now, and seeing it as a bit of an eye-opener and a bit of a game changer. So yeah, please let me know what your thoughts are on that. Hit me back with your feedback on the webinar. Remember that we will be having a question and answer section on the evening call on Tuesday regarding the session, regarding the webinar. So we're going to have an evening call on Tuesday, a live evening call, so we can break down the markets together, and then we'll have a section at the end where we can have a bit of a Q&A on anything, but mainly focusing on any questions that you may have from the trading session webinar. So yeah, as I said, I think that is going to be beneficial to lots of you, that trading session webinar. So I hope that you like it. So getting into this week, let's start off with the fundamentals at the start, as always. So it's quite a quiet start to the week fundamentally. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is quite quiet. So Monday, there's basically no high impact news. Tuesday, we have the Reserve Bank of Australia speaking at 6 a.m. Wednesday, quiet day, no high impact news there. Thursday is where the fundamentals start coming out. We've got Euro news, we've got pound news at 9:30, the usual time of 9:30, and then we've got US dollar news as well. Then on Friday, we have earlier than normal, 7 a.m. So good to note that for the UK. We've got 7 a.m. We've got retail sales being released, and then we've got some news from the Euro at 9 a.m. So remember, guys, the economic calendar can change on a daily basis. New things can pop up. Time could possibly change. So always keep an eye on that. So we have as I said, relatively quiet start to the week fundamentally. And things get going from Wednesday, Thursday, sort of Friday. Now let's look at the chart and see what we can see for the week ahead. So last week, well, this week's sort of view is very similar to last week. This week we did have some moves. The main moves of the market were the ones that we were eyeing up on EURAUD, Euro NZD, and that's basically the main two pairs. And a few other pairs, Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, moves that we saw, which we've forecasted, which we saw and identified before they happened in the market, but we were very unfortunate that it just simply played out in the midnight hours sort of thing at like 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. So they were sort of the main moves, but it didn't really get going like expected, and some of those pairs have actually pulled back, and really the whole week on the whole has been a bit of a ranging week. So last week there was moves in the market, but relatively, if we look at the weekly candle or how it finished off on the daily, that's quite a bit of a flat week, as in there was no real confirmed direction. So let's just have a look and break down our charts in our usual fashion and we'll start with EURUSD. So what I've marked out here is we've got this sort of triangle formation forming here. We can see on the daily here, and we can, well, I'll drop down to the lower time frames in a minute. Now daily, at the start of the week last week, we had a little bit of a push up. I'll just drop down to the 4 hour. Sniper Sundays explained we'll be looking for a push down into sort of this region, where we could be looking at a possible 61.8%, 78% retracement, and maybe have a fake out to the downside of this triangle formation. Now on Thursday, we did have that breakout to the downside. We tested the waters here. Remember, with support and resistance, when price pushes down, it nearly always comes back to retest that level for support. So it sort of, remember like what we say about in a swimming pool, if you're in the deep end and you're trying to find the support at the bottom of the pool, so you put a foot down, and then when you realize that there is something there, then you can go back down and push off that in order to push up higher. Sort of similar situation. So we sort of pushed down here, found some support, and then price came down on Friday to retest that, and then we had a minor push back up, but we have to remember we've got this sort of resistance above us. Now at the moment we are technically in a sort of sell region here where we've broken below this counter trend line here at the moment, or this trend line here, and we come back and reacting as resistance. Now we want to kind of see where we can go next on this pair. So if we just go back out to the daily here, we can see that we've got this sort of left shoulder here, head, came back down, tested as a right shoulder, pushed off, but couldn't continue this push up, and we kind of sort of fallen back off. This area is very, very important, this region that I've highlighted out here for a couple of reasons. You can see here, this is our last higher low here. If this uptrend is to continue, if we're going to push up higher and take out this high and create a new higher high, this level has to hold on the daily chart. This also you can now see is quite important because it's been held as a strong daily level once over here and then twice over here. So if this can hold a support, this means that we can see this pair push up and continue up higher above the previous higher high on the daily. So we just get here on the daily chart for sort of longer term projection. You can see here we come back down, we've tapped the 61.8% retracement level once again, and at the moment looks like we could push up. But remember, the start of the week we may see false moves, as we spoke about on the session webinar and also days of the week. So we need to sort of see what Monday is going to do here. We could potentially at the moment continue pushing down. We'll see here on this sort of 1 hour time frame we're making low lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and we could drop back into this level once again. And this is sort of the setup that I'm going to be looking for. I do like USD to push up higher overall. On the daily, we've had a very big bullish push here. We've had a retracement, and we've had another push here, and it looks like we may just be having another retracement here once again. So if I just zoom in here and just go from this level, as I said, we can see here that we've actually took this. We're actually rejecting the 61 and 78% retracement level as well. So the bulls overall are sort of in control here at the moment, but on the lower time frame, as mentioned, the 1 hour, sort of 4 hour, we are making lower lows, lower highs at the moment. So we could see this come back down and test this previous support. And what we may also see, guys, is to come back down and just take out this support, just take out the previous low here, but have a push down here before taking this liquidity, taking this price, this area of price out before making the bigger move up to the upside. We failed to make that move here. We're having a retracement at the moment, sort of re-energizing to try and push up one more time, but we could possibly see this come back down, take out this level here, take out this liquidity where, again, as mentioned before, there'll be lots of orders in around this level, and we could see price come out, take out this price action here, and then have a take out this stop losses here, and then have a swift reversal to the upside. So I'm going to be watching out for that on market open and seeing if this is going to be able to push down lower. So that's sort of a setup there. If we can find a bullish momentum early, we do have resistance just above us, but we need to look at the right setup in order to look at getting an entry. So ideally, what we do want is to come back down, retest this level of support, maybe break through this level of support created on Friday, Thursday, Friday last week, break through that level of support, continue this bit of a trend into maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and then have a look up to the upside and reverse back up to the upside. EURGBP. So EURGBP was quite flat last week, as I mentioned. If we just look at this, we had a bit of movement on the bank holiday Monday, I believe it was, but then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on a daily chart here, we've done very, very little. So at the moment, there is still, if we just look at the weekly chart, we can see here on the weekly that the bears are still in control. We've had this really big bearish push from the top down, bearish, 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 bearish. So the bears are still in control. So I can still see here that even before we make a pull back up to the upside, that we can still roll over and take out the last week's low, come back down, dip a bit lower, and then see a push back up to the upside. And we see here on the weekly as well, we've got this strong area of resistance around here, where price action is, we've got some support here about around 0.8700, but you can see here the very, very strong level of weekly support and resistance here. Support, 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 resistance, resistance. You could break up, retest that support, and then we could ping off to the upside. So Going to be watching out for EURGBP. I do think that the pound has some more strength, and like I said last week, I think we were just creating a full sense of support around this level here before making a roll over to the downside. So Monday came down support, Tuesday I think it was support, then Wednesday, Thursday, a lot of people may be trying to take an early long trade here, and then we can be looking at this pair pushing down into this region. Now on Thursday, Friday, I was actually looking at this a potential short trade on this, just to come down and push into, dip into this level, because we more or less know that price, there's a good high possibility that price is going to come out and take out this low. Before it makes a move up to the upside, 89% of the time, before price reverses up to the upside, what will it do? It will come out and take out the previous lows. So on that basis, I've been looking at possibly trying to take a short trade. There was a possibility that I was looking at on Friday, but there wasn't enough momentum in the market. You can see here we sort of had a resistance, resistance, resistance. Here was a possibility to push down, but there wasn't enough momentum in the market on Friday to look at taking that trade down. Now, pound is a little bit tricky, which we're going to get to on the pound pairs. We need a little bit from it at the start of the week to show us which way it wants to go. But regardless, I do still see EURGBP coming down and taking out these lows and coming back down into sort of possibly 0.8600 first before we move up. But I will be watching just around these regions, because we can potentially just dip into this level and look at buy. We might see some buy orders or buy trades, long trades from around this region. So just another little dip this week, a bit like what we were waiting for last week on Euro pairs. A little bit of a dip lower, and then we could be looking at taking a long. Euro and Euro AUD. I'll just go back out here to the daily or even the weekly. Similar situation with the EURGBP pair. You can see here quite bearish still, bearish, bearish, bearish. Last week dipped a little bit lower, but not an awful lot, so we're slowing down. Daily, we've had one bullish candle, which we were looking for last week, but that, as I mentioned, this was what we were looking for. We were looking at taking this long here, but it moved in the Asian session. But then we've reversed back down. So we had this nice morning star formation, 1, 2, 3, which is a great reversal sign. But then we reversed back down. But what we can be watching out for is price coming down into this region, potentially making a double bottom. We had a morning star formation here. Then we had some more price action here to reject this level. We could see a push up. But again, what will we likely see before price reverses back up to the upside? To take out the previous low here. So there'll be a lot of long trade, there'll be a lot of stop losses sitting in below this level. We can ideally see this pair push down, spike to the downside, pull back up, and then we can make a move up higher. So on that basis, I'm looking at this sort of setup at the moment. You can see here on my 4-hour chart, I've just come to this new high here, made I've gone from the extreme high, just coming across here, because it is valid as any 2 points on the chart makes a trend line. So we can see here that we've got 0.2, and this is a strong trend line coming across the top here, and we've got this small counter trend line. So we can see that price is going to get trapped here slightly. What we want to do is drop down to the 1 hour. Price is bouncing off this counter trend line, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Up at these regions is where I'll be watching this pair. I think we can may see some early price action push up into this region at the start of the week. And if we see rejection from around this level, we can potentially look at taking that trade back down into this region where we can take out those lows before looking at that reversal and the trade back up that we're looking out for to that medium term before the longer term short. So I think there could possibly be a nice intraday short trade on here. Remember, this is a counter trend line, so should this counter trend line break, there's some good downside potential. So we could see a nice little setup there. Might see an order or something along those lines from around these levels. We can see we've got resistance. We might make a right shoulder, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Third touch of this trend line. You can see this roll over to the downside and make one more push. Let's see if it lines up with a Fibonacci level here. We've got sort of 61.8% has been tapped already. So we come back up here and reject this area of resistance. Then we could potentially see a nice short trade down at the start of the week, and again maybe into Tuesday stroke Wednesday, where then we may see a reversal in the markets, or a reversal not in the markets, but where new trends start beginning, like I mentioned in the sessions webinar. and then we could see a move back up. So looking at potential early weakness on the euro pairs once again, but when I say early weakness, remember, not straight away. We're waiting for the setup to happen. If we see a little push up here, then we could see the weakness down. Euro NZD, sort of similar situation. We did have a nice bullish move, which we forecasted, but again, moved in the Asian session, so didn't give us an entry. Marked this level out on Thursday. We tapped it and reversed quite sharply. So you can see you've had a bullish push, but we're overall still quite bearish on this move at the moment. So where are we looking at coming? So price has rejected this resistance, the last lower high. You can see here on the daily, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. We came back up and retested that last lower high. Also, if I extend this across, you can just see this whole level of resistance and support. Support, 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 resistance, resistance. So now we're looking at this coming back down and potentially retesting this previous level of support. So we're watching price to come down into this region. We are just tapping this 1.800 at the moment, but we pulled back quite deep. We're currently touching the 61.8%. So we need to see how price reacts around here early in the week. Again, at the moment, I think we could come back down along with EURAUD to make another low, but we have to see how the market opens. We are in a tight, under a tight sort of trend here on the 1 hour, lower low, lower high, lower low. If we stay below here, stay below this level here, which is the last lower high on the 1 hour, again, we could potentially see maybe a little pop up from this level. But if we see weakness, we could short back into this region where we may then potentially see that medium term long trade to ride this back up. So I'm going to be watching for this sort of setup early in the week. If we break through here, then this is the next. If we break through weekly support 1.800, then we're going to be looking at coming down to around 1.8500. So there's a nice little trade on there, a couple of hundred pips that we could see come back down and retest this level. We just go to the 4 hour. You can see we've rejected there. We'll see if price comes down and can find some support here once again. EURGBPY. So I'm just going back to a nice clear chart that we've had in EURGBPY. Mentioned last week that I think we could pop back down into this weekly level of support. See support, support, support. Been a little bit choppy and messy on EURGBPY. So I haven't really wanted to get too involved just yet, but it does interest me once we get back down to these levels. At the moment, on the daily, you have a slight little daily trend line coming across here. I think this can be dipped into, broken, dip into this possible weekly, daily support level, maybe even take out this previous level over here. But down at these levels will be interesting. If we do have that early euro weakness, Monday, Tuesday, we could be looking at a nice trade from these levels. If it pushes down here, see a push down the EURGBPY into this level, it could be a nice potential long trade around the middle of the week. Now, GBPUSD, I've just mentioned a few moments ago that it's a bit tricky on this one. I need a little bit from this at the start of the week. But overall, remember from my Sniper Sundays, I think 2 weeks ago, given short, medium and long term targets. Remember I said I think that pound can actually come back up on 1.3500 and it'll probably be seen a bit crazy at the time when we were trading around these levels, I think. But you can see it's easily achievable. Now, at the moment, on the weekly, we can see we're very, very bullish here. We've had a very, very bullish weekly candle. Then we just had a bit of a sideways week, then bullish again. And then last week, quite bullish, even though we did pull back down. When we drop down to the daily chart to sort of decipher this and understand what exactly happened during the week, you can see here that these dotted lines, I've split the difference on my weekly support and monthly resistance levels. As I said, GBPUSD likes to work off not just 1,500 differences, it likes the 250 differences as well. As we saw, it rejected that perfectly last week. But at the moment on daily, we can see we've had a very, very bullish daily run, sort of had a little bit of a breather, didn't have much of a retracement, and then it took off again. And once again, we're having a little bit of a breather, but this daily candle looks like we could potentially see some bullish movement early in the week. At the moment, why we need a little bit more from pound is that it does overall look quite bullish, and we could still potentially just break out of this region where we've been consolidating at the end of last week. And if we broke above this level, then there's good potential to actually take out this previous high. So we need to see how this is going to behave. I think that with the pound, what we may see is just a little bit more playing around at the start of the week. So what we could see here is from here, the bulls, even on a 4-hour here, you can see that every time we try to push down, the bulls step in, then we could easily see this pop back up towards this previous high over here, around the 1.2650. But on the 1 hour, if we just drop down to the lower time frame, we can see it is getting a bit choppy and around here. So I think early in the week we might still see a little bit of playing around this area. We might try and take out this high here, might try and come back and trade down to the bottom. I think we can see a little bit of bouncing around within this range early in the week. But I definitely think that before we can think about pound weakness, that we need to see a bit more substantial resistance from the pound. So for instance, we've seen this move from top to bottom here. I think we're going to break out of this level, come up into these regions, and then we need to see some resistance around. You can see this lower high formed over here, or we need to see some resistance in this 61 to 78% retracement level. We need to let price show us that it's ready to roll over and turn back down to the downside, because at the moment it's quite bullish. So they could, even if this was to pull back down into these regions early in the week, there's potential long trades back up into this level. But I wouldn't be looking at taking a trade on the breakout of here just yet, because there is an area of resistance that could be met here, and we could find some resistance here that can roll this over to the downside. But we just need a little bit more from the pound and US dollar on this pair. As you can see, it is ranging here at the moment, so we don't want to guess it just yet. If we came down and found some resistance around the bottom here, maybe even dipped lower into this level, 1.2350 or 75, I think that is. Yep. We might even just push down to this level, dip into that, reject that, and then have a nice push back up to the upside. So it could be a long trade there. So again, not every trade is going to be ready, not every pair is going to be ready to take a trade from the market open. Some pairs you can analyze and say, okay, there's nothing really quite there yet. I'll let it develop a little bit more, and then I'll come back to it and see what happens in a day or so. GBPJPY is a similar situation. So you can see here, overall on the weekly chart, we can see it's quite bullish. Big bullish week, move sideways. Big bullish week, move sideways. Could there be another bullish week? Drop down to the daily. You can see here, if we just monitor the last few days and see what happened. Friday was a doji candle, flat day in the market. Thursday was a doji candle, flat day in the market. So that shows indecision in the market. It's not sure which way it wants to go yet. So what can we get from that? Well, we can understand, okay, the market doesn't know which way it wants to go. So therefore, we don't know what way it wants to go. So then don't try and guess the trade when there's no obvious price action there. Remember, we're reading the charts, we're letting it tell us a story, and then we're deciding on where to go next with it. Currently, we've got doji candle. Doji candle is telling us that we're not sure, the market's not sure which way it's going to go next. So therefore, we don't want to try and guess that. We want to let it give us a bit more clarity, let it show us a little bit more, and then we can take a trade. So equally, you can see here, we've got this sort of range tool here, or this range that it's been in. And just like GBPUSD, should it break above, then there's lots of upside for pound. If it's able to break above this range that it's in at the moment, it could potentially push up quite a bit higher. So we just want this to show us a little bit more. We want it to, as I said, tell us a story, tell us what it wants to do next. Let me just go back to daily. Yeah, we just need the pound to show us a little bit more here. Because there's two arguments here. You could look at potentially this having a pullback to 61.8% retracement and can go higher and finish this move. But there's also the argument where we can say, okay, we've hit that 61.8% retracement here as well. So there could even be a short move before a long move. But at the moment, it's in the middle of a range. So I'm just going to wait for this one, guys, and let this show us a little bit more. While we wait for the range, we can always watch and wait. If it comes up, taps 1.3500, takes out the previous highs, could be a short trade down. If this comes back down lower, takes out the previous lows, we could have a long trade up. So we'll just wait. There's nothing there for us just yet. GBP AUD was something we were looking at last week. Spain, I was looking for price to come out and touch this outer trend line. Remember, we broke the inner trend line here. So waiting for it to come out to look at long trades. I had a bit of a move on the Tuesday, along with the other trades that moved during the night. And we come back down, and we still look like we can come back out and take out this support level over here. So what I'm going to be looking for on this pair is still to come out and tap this level before it makes a real move in either direction. We've got this trend line coming very, very close. So on the 4 hour, what we can see is we've had a move up, but we failed to sustain higher, even star formation, and drop back down. We're coming into this level of support, which is going to be very, very interesting. We might see price just sort of move sideways until it comes over. It might consolidate Monday, Tuesday till it gets to this level, and then once it hits this level, we can take off. So we're going to be watching out for that on GBP AUD. Nothing there just yet. Again, with pound pairs, we need a little bit more from it at the start of the week. Watching other pound pairs will help us decide what's going to happen on this pair as well. USDJPY. So I showed you last week a potential order trade that we could take as an example of what we could be taking in the future, where there was an order at this level to place a trade, and price dropped into that level, fulfilled it, and can move higher. But right now we just need to see where can USDJPY go. So USDJPY, they found some support at 10700 here, round significant level. We've made a double bottom here on the 4 hour. Just go back to the daily chart. Daily, we've made a double bottom quite strong. We had a morning star formation here, and we do look like we could push up higher at the moment. Let me just see here. What we've got is this triangle formation, as I've just drawn on here. So you can see that even though we've got the bullish momentum coming into the market, we're going to run into this sort of area of resistance and support, where we've got this resistance coming across the top and the support coming across the bottom. So we're going to, I think that the US dollar, the Japanese yen can push up higher and break above this 10800 area and come back up to the previous levels here. Let me just go back up to the daily, because what we were looking at previously was this pair coming up to possibly the 110 level before rolling over to the downside and coming down to around 106 or 10500 before a longer term trade up. Now at the moment we've come up to here, 109, 109.50 nearly, and we've had a bit of a sell off here. But coming into 107, it hasn't been able to break that, but it didn't really give this much of a test. See how price moved away quite quickly. So the bulls stepped in quite quickly here. We got, I'll just zoom out on here. So we came up, made a support, found resistance, came back, made support, and you can almost see here that we could have a range here. Until this movement recently with the coronavirus and so on, the US dollar was ranging for US dollar Japanese yen was ranging for a hell of a long time. I think it was a couple of months. Now we can see here that potentially there's a range forming here. Remember, when you find a low and you find a high, mark it out, and then it can help you understand. It can help you understand and make you read. Sorry guys. It can make you understand and read what is going on with price action. So here you can see that we've made a support, made a resistance. We come back down and moved away quite fast. So we've got this sort of triangle formation forming now. And if we can break above this level of resistance and break above 10800, we could see a fast move back up to the upside and back up to the top of this range. Now we are within this level, again, within this sort of triangle formation. So early in the week, we may just sort of consolidate around these levels. We could dip a little bit lower. So I'm going to be watching out for potential trades to push this back up to the top of this 10900 area. I'm going to be watching out for this triangle formation, looking out for fake outs to the downside. Any fake outs to the downside, we can look at taking a long position up. But likewise, we'll just have to see how the market opens. Remember, things can change very, very quickly in the current market, because obviously the Japanese yen is highly affected by news that comes out, the US dollar, any news that comes out. And this is obviously with gold moving quite sharply. USDJPY can be moved can move quite sharply as well. But I am definitely expecting at least a push back up. We're having a higher high, higher low, higher high, making a higher low hit or equal higher high here. We may even form a little bit of range here at this sort of level. As you can see, there's a little bit of a range starting to form here. USDJPY ranges quite a bit and then it breaks out. But I definitely can see us coming up and testing these highs. So if we see a push down to the downside, I think we can, at the moment, the bulls are in control. Then we can see a push up above this region, up into this level. Whether we can sustain above that or not, we will have to see. But if we see a breakout to the downside or a fake out or a retest of this support, strong rejection of this support here, you can see support came back down again. Price wasn't able to come down and sort of fill this wick. So it shows the bulls are pushing up and pushing up and pushing up. If we see a rejection of this level, it could be a nice little trade up here to the top of this range. And if we can sustain above that, then it can be more upside. But I definitely see, at least before this rolls over to the downside, before we see downside momentum with USDJPY, I see us coming up and taking out sort of this level here. And then it's just whether how much strength we will have and whether we can continue up higher before taking that trade down. So I'm looking at a potential long trade on USDJPY earlier in the week. If it comes back down to sort of around these regions, bottom of this level, around these regions, if we can find that, then we might see some support and a place to take a trade. USDCAD is a similar situation. So I marked this out last week and showed you how USDCAD had broken out really cleanly, broken out of this long-term trend line. Now, when we talk about a strong breakout, this is what we are talking about. This on the 4 hour, very, very, very strong. So you don't want to be trading against it. That breakout candle there. So very, very, very strong breakout. Which what does that mean, guys? It means that there's a very, very, very high chance of this continuing to the upside. So whether we have a pullback first or not, or much of a pullback, it does mean that we can basically 89% guarantee that this is going to continue this trend higher. If we just drop down to the 1 hour, you can see we had a strong breakout here as well, but we never had that retest or that pullback. Now, what we can see happening here at the moment, remember my bias was medium term to pull back up into this region before that short down. At the moment, I don't think that this is that short back down, and after this big strong breakout, I think we're just having a bit of a retest, come back to retest the 1.400 level, come back down, maybe dip into this level of support here, could even come back down and tap the back of this trend line once again. Along with that, that would line up with a few confluences with Fibonacci here. We can see the 61.8% lines up with this sort of support level, 61.8% also, so you could dip down into that. And if we just line up that 78% retracement level, what does it line up with? It lines up with this support over here. So if the price dips in a little bit lower into this region, we could be looking at a very nice trade to ping off this sort of area of support and then push up, and we could be looking at coming up to 1.4250 and maybe even possibly higher before we look at the trend changing once again and come back to the downside. You can see here we sort of had a trend change here. We've had this impulsive move, very, very fast move up. Didn't get a chance. There was no price action here to let us know that this was going to happen, even though I had projected it on the Sniper Sundays, but just didn't give us a chance to enter. As at the time, we had just broken below this level of support. We were tapping it as resistance, and then bang, it took off. Now we haven't really come back or had any time to pull back as support. We're pulling back as support now. So now that we're pulling back as support, it could be like a slingshot effect, pulling back tight to then ping back off to the upside. So we'll be watching out for that next week. And then Aussie dollar, US dollar. So given that we're looking at US dollar CAD pushing back down before pushing up higher, that means potential weakness before bullishness. What we could see on Aussie dollar is potential bullishness before weakness. Now, Aussie dollar, I'm just going to clear this off quickly. Aussie dollar, we were last week expecting this to sort of sell off from this region. We called it perfectly. But again, it happened during the Asian session, so it didn't give us an opportunity to take the trade. Now we come back up into this level of resistance, and we've sold off. So this is our first sign that the bears are stepping in. Remember what I said about price action, being able to read it. You can see bullish, 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 bullish. We don't always want to take a trade off the first candle on lower time frames. We want price to prove to us that it's actually changing. So here we can see we had a bearish engulfing the previous 1, 2, 3 days. So quite strong. But then the following day we've had a bit of a pin bar and looks like we could be pushing back up. So if I just delete this off, what can we do here? We've made a high and we've made a low. So this is the higher high, this is the higher low on the daily. Drop down to the 4 hour. This doesn't need to be quite so large. Drop down to the 4 hour. Now we know that we're within this sort of region that we can keep an eye out for. At the moment, we've had a bit of a push down last week. We can see the bulls have stepped back in, bullish engulfing. So we've had a push down, bullish engulfing here, morning star formation, touched here, a bit of an inverse head and shoulders, bullish engulfing, and now the bulls keep engulfing the bears, the price actions. You can see here, push down, but we're engulfed, pushing back up. So at the moment, Aussie dollar finished the week on the front foot, and it still looks quite strong. And we can see here that we got this 61.8% that we're rejecting at the moment, but I can see this easily being broke and this being a sort of false area of resistance for price just to come back up above that, break above that, and then look at tapping the 78.6% level and maybe even coming up to make a double top. So these are the levels that I'm going to be watching out for coming into this week. You can see we've got a sort of area of resistance here and broke down. The price comes up and tapped into this region. This could be a nice short level to look at taking a short. See that 78.6%. So we can find resistance here, then that may be the nice trade down that we're looking for. So price is coming back up, showing that it's going to hold as resistance, and then we can look at taking a trade down. So I'm going to be eyeing that up for next week. USDCAD as well. Aussie dollar CAD is starting to look really interesting. It was quite choppy last week. We did fall off from where I expected, but then pushed back up quite quickly. Push back down, and that pushing back up. You can see here higher high, higher low. Come back up. We've retested that higher high here, just taking it out above. I'm going to be watching this because remember we have to watch oil. But the Canadian dollar, if it can get stronger or not, if oil gains some strength from the lows that it's at, it could push the Canadian dollar and gain some strength. So you can see push down here. And if we have the Aussie dollar weakness, this could be a very, very nice trade. So we can see here at the moment, we've got a nice double top formation. We've got a top here, and the right double top has taken out the previous high, which is interesting because we know that price likes to take out the previous high before making a reversal. So it's a nice sort of setup forming here. 4 hour, bit of a bearish engulfing, drop down to the 1 hour. At the start of the week, what we're going to be watching for is price around these levels to show us a little bit more, and we can possibly look at taking a short trade down. From this level here on the 1 hour, had a little bit of a pullback. A pullback into sort of the 61, 78% retracement level would be absolutely perfect. If we saw a pullback to these levels and we saw the price action that we want to see on lower time frames, this could be an ideal level to look at taking that short trade. Aussie dollar, Japanese yen, we were keeping a sort of an eye on this one last week as well. Again, missed us with the movement during the night. Obviously, Aussie dollar, Japanese yen pair. Obviously, you guys, especially after watching the trading sessions webinar, when is this pair going to move? It's always going to move during the Asian session because it's an Aussie dollar and Japanese yen pair, both Asian pairs or the pairs that come live in the Asian session. So off the back of us looking at weakness on the Aussie dollar, if Aussie dollar weakness can sustain, remember we've got this sort of area of resistance. We've seen the first slowdown on Aussie dollar to show us that price wants to turn around. Now we need to let it make sure, and we need to let price show us that it wants to turn around, or that it's going to find resistance, I should say. Because at the moment the bulls are still strong and we could potentially come up and make a new higher high. If price action shows us that and maybe we see a pull down, we could potentially look at taking a trade up and coming up above these highs. But my bias and sort of my favorite bias on this at the moment is to come up into this region and see a sell-off. But we have to be open to seeing different things in the market. And if there is another trade, we'll switch our bias short term and then pick up on our long-term bias for the short back down after. So we want to be able to make money from both sides of the market, whichever way it moves. We don't get married to one bias, but this is what I foresee, and this is what my favorite sort of setup is to see the Aussie dollar weakness come in this week. Remember, we're looking for Aussie dollar weakness medium term, because long term we want to buy it back up again and buy Aussie dollar US dollar all the way back up. So same with Aussie dollar CAD, and in Aussie dollar Japanese yen, we can see we've got this sort of left shoulder head. Didn't quite make it here with the right shoulder, but we are in that sort of area of resistance there. but we haven't been able to sell off. We can see that we've pushed down. We haven't really been able to gain the momentum to push back down. As I said, the end of the week, Aussie dollar did finish quite strong on the front foot. So we've got this sort of setup here where if I drop down to the 1 hour, we can see this setup here. We've had a move from the top down to the bottom, the top to the bottom. We've rejected the 61 and 78% retracement level. Now we've had the first test. Remember what I said about at the start, like if you're trying to find the bottom of a pool on the deep end. Same applies when you're looking for resistance. So it's found its first test of resistance here. So now we're going to be watching the second test to see if it rejects. If it rejects this level here and comes back up into this 61.8 and 78.6 retracement level and into this sort of highlighted region would be perfect level, great area for risk reward. If we can come up into that level and show us that it's finding resistance, perhaps make a double top here. As you can see, make a third touch of this trend line coming across the top here as well. So you can see 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Then we could potentially be seeing a nice short trade down. So I'm going to be watching out for that sort of setup here. But I've got this counter trend line quite steep where we're just bouncing off. If this can push up higher, tap into this region, we could potentially look at a trade back down. And then NZD USD, we've been eyeing this one up all sort of last week. This sort of stays as it is. It broke down, weren't able to get onto that trade because of the price moving in the Asian session. We've been patient. It's now pulled back up. We're coming back up to this retracement level, 71.8, 78.6% retracement level here. Right shoulder to this left shoulder. Then we can hold here as resistance. Then we're looking at coming back down and finding this as support. So we're looking at a trade coming from here down into these regions. So we're watching this early in the week as well. This would be perfect. Could be a really nice trade down here for us next week on this pair. Now, as I said, we need to watch oil. Oil's quite interesting at the moment. Obviously, oil looks like it's falling off the face of the earth with price here at the moment, down at levels that we haven't seen for, let's have a look on the monthly chart, since December 2001. So at the moment, it has broken out all previous lows. So what does that potentially mean, guys? That we could see a reversal back up to the upside, because what price has done here, think about what price is doing, what price does a lot, like what I showed you on the trading sessions. It's come down, found support. Second time came down, found support, just to confirm to get a push back up to the upside. We've had a liquidity push up here to bring in long traders, eager long traders. Now it's taken out those long traders and pushed price all the way back down, taking them out below the previous low where there could be a lot of stop losses or orders that were bought that were long from here. And then price came back down, found some support here. What would have happened here is people would have been started to try to take longs here. Retail traders looking across saying, okay, there's some support, 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 triple bottom. What happens? They get taken out. This is just on a longer and wider scale, but very similar to what I said on the trading sessions, where you find a false support, an imaginary support for people to look at and say, okay, this is where I'm going to buy. And then what price does is breaks through that. Now we've had this spike back through to the downside. Now we can potentially see a push up on oil next week. So I'm going to be watching out for this very, very closely. We could be having a trade on oil. I'd like to see a push back up above these levels, or just see some price action around here. And if we can see strength on oil, then we could potentially see strength on Canadian dollar as well. Gold is quite interesting coming into this week. So we've had a really big push up here on gold. If I just look at that on a weekly, going off what I've told you today and what I always say, what does it look like price has done here? It's come out and taken any short trades that were from around this level, spiked up to the upside like manipulation, and looks like it could absolutely fall and die now. We've had a really steep push up during the week, all the way up to 1750, didn't quite tap it, and then we pushed down, and we're looking quite bearish at the moment. However, we do just pull a trend line across price action from the bottom here. You can see price is just starting to break out here. So breakout trades might be trying to jump in to this gold short now. We have had a high. We didn't come back up and make a double top, but we rejected this 61% retracement level and pushed down. coming into this trend line support, not a great place to take a trade around this level, especially with gold being so high. But what we can see now is that we finished off this move already, A, B, C, and we finished off this move here with D. So what we could potentially do is make A the new, C the new A, D the new B, and we could look at this pulling back up into this region before selling off again. But we can also see gold on a wider time frame that we could even pull, once it finds support here, you can find the support, watch this pull back up to make a retracement, find resistance, and then take a short trade down, because we are on the sell side of the trend line right now. Pretty steep trend line. Remember, this is the last high low sort of on the daily chart here, so there is quite a bit of room to the downside, even just while it still remains bullish. So if you go to the daily here, you can see higher high, higher low, higher high. So it could come all the way down here and still remain bullish on the higher time frame. So there is some downside, good downside potential on gold. But what I'd like to see is gold pull back up into sort of these regions, back up to the 78% retracement level, and then from around here, you can see this area of resistance that we've got. You can find resistance. It could be a nice gold short trade down, looking at 1650 potential as short trades. But let's see how the week starts. Remember, gold can change in a flash at the start of the week, given any fundamentals that come out over the weekend. So that's sort of what we're looking out for the week, our watch list. Euro pairs are interesting, so intraday and medium-term trades. We've got USDCAD, USDJPY, that's interesting. Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar are sort of top of our watch list. So all of these pairs are pairs that we're looking at taking trades on for the week ahead. So remember, we're going to be placing orders as well. So I'll just quickly run over that quickly. For instance, price could be up at this level. I may give out a trade and give you my bias and say that to place a long trade from, let's just say, 0.7070, and with a stop loss in place. So you can set that on your broker. And then what we'll be doing is, for waiting for price to come down, tap that level, enter us into the market, and then go off in our direction. So that's what we're going to be looking at and taking this week. But what we want to do is, as always, let Monday start. Let's see what happens from the news over the weekend. Just like the trading webinar said, or the trading session webinar said, Mondays are not an ideal day to trade the market. If there's trades there, we'll take it. But we just let the market settle, let the market open happen, let the market morning settle, Monday morning settle. We know from the trading session webinar that often the first move of the session is fake and false. So what do you expect from the first move or the first day of the week? Put it in context. First move of every session can often be false. So what's the first day of the week going to be? A lot of the time it's false. So I hope you like that, guys. Let's have a great week. I said, hope you like the trading session webinar. Let me know your feedback on that. We're going to have, I'm going to update this in a group shortly, but we're going to have a live evening call on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. UK time. And we're going to have a live morning call on Friday morning at 6:30 a.m. UK time. That will run on for a few hours like the last one did. I think the last one actually went on for like 3 hours as we just size up the market, see if there's any trade to take. We may even take a live trade. So hope you have a great weekend, guys. Speak to you soon. And yeah, see you on Market Open. Thank you.